Hi and welcome to the Profitable Franchisees podcast. My name is Tracey Leak and I am your host. This podcast is all about bringing you really powerful strategies and stories to help you have a more profitable franchise business. For some of you, this might be a welcome back, not a welcome to. So I started the Profitable Franchisees podcast quite a few years ago. And because I have been working with franchisees and franchisors for years, I decided to do the podcast because I wanted to bring more value to franchisees to help them through bringing them experts or me sharing strategies to help them to grow and build their business, but also bringing stories from other successful franchisees just like you to actually help you to grow and build your business. Now, I love the podcast because, one, it's absolutely free for you guys. I can remember a stage in my business where I didn't have the money to necessarily invest in extra coaching or training or going to workshops. So I was looking for free things, and that's why I love delivering something that's free. It doesn't mean that it's not valuable just because you're not paying for it. You need to spend your time to come and listen to the podcast. But what actually happened was I had some events in my life happen, as we all do. And, if you've been around long enough, you're going to have events come and go. This event in my life this time was my mum was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, MND. Very debilitating disease, no cure, no treatment. Mum's was extremely aggressive, so she only lasted with us for about 4 or 5 months after she was first diagnosed. But I took on a role of care and medical coordinator is kind of how it ended up being. And something that I would never change in the world. And luckily I had the ability to be able to drop a lot of things to actually be there for my mum. I also had a very good base of what I'd call really loyal clients that I'd worked with for a long time who understood what was happening, and the support they gave me through that time was amazing. There was a couple of star performers of my clients who probably supported me more than I was supporting them at that particular point in time, and I'll be forever grateful to them. But because that was happening, to be, dealing with the medical side of things and caring for my mum, and also running a business, there was a lot of things that just had to drop. I couldn't actually keep juggling all the balls. And the podcast was one of those things. Now, this has been a couple of years now, but life just carried on. I was busy, in a good way. Don't ever think busy in business is bad. Busy in business is good. It means that, you've got lots of work going on. And I just hadn't picked up the podcast. And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't sure if I was actually helping anyone with the podcast. I was like, is this just something I'm doing and it's being put out into the world? Is it actually helping anyone? And so I just hadn't picked it up. I had a small moment of, imposter syndrome of who am I to be doing this? And so I just hadn't picked it up. But this particular year, just since the start of this year, I've had so many people when I've been out doing conferences or trainings and talking to people who've said to me, I've been going back and listening to the old podcast episodes. And they're like, when are you going to start that up again? I got so much value from it. And I never realized how impactful it actually was in helping people. And the moment that turned everything around was I was coaching a franchisee for a group, and I happened to be doing a one-on-one session with them, and I haven't been doing one-on-one coaching for years either. And another thing that I'm picking back up again going into 2025 is bringing some more coaching programs for franchisees. But I was talking to this particular franchisee, and they had actually come from the medical industry. So they had actually been a nurse before they got into business. And this might sound bad, but it's true, is that when people come from the medical industry into business, sometimes it takes them a little while to get their head around business, because in the medical field, you're not really dealing with, direct customer service. You even though you're treating patients and things, they're not really thought of as a customer. They're thought of as a patient. You're not dealing with money. There's not a lot of business stuff happening in that. It's very medical, very technical. And so oftentimes I find people coming from the medical industry into business, it can take them a little bit of time to find their footing in business. And this franchisee I was talking to, he was doing so well. He was like in the top 10 franchisees in this group, and he'd only been going for like 18 months. And I was just really curious of what he had done. I was like, were your parents in business? Have you been in business before? And I basically just said to Mark, I said, how do you think like this? What have you been doing? Have you been taking business courses? What have you been doing to actually get your head around business? And he just looked at me and said, it's because of you, Tracey. And I went, pardon? Like, I had never met him before. This was my first time meeting him. And he said, well, when I got started in the franchise, they gave me your book, my 101 Tips for Franchisees, and also that they recommended I listen to your podcast. And he said, so I listened to every episode. And he said, in fact, when I knew you were coming back to do work with us, he said, I went back and re-listened to all the episodes. Now, if you know me, that, my whole goal is how can I help people? So I burst into tears, to be perfectly honest, because I was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. I've never met you and I actually was able to help you, a young couple with kids in their first business. And that was the kick up the butt I needed. That was absolutely the kick up the butt I needed to say, hey, Tracey, get back out there, make the time to happen. And funnily enough, I've actually just recorded the first episode with Dan Cahill, who, I'll be loading that with this episode as well, from Jim's Mowing. And I forgot how much I love talking to franchisees about their success stories. You want to listen to that episode with Dan. I mean, what an amazing story he has of his journey in franchising. But I really want to bring that for you guys. So I'm really committed to bringing the podcast. I've got a series of interviews lined up that I'm really excited to bring to you. Some people that you don't normally get to hear from, people who have been Australian Franchisee of the Year, people bringing ideas and content and strategies to you that I know are working currently to help you in your business. I've got a list of topics that I want to talk to you about. So I really hope you jump on board. Wherever you see this, subscribe. If it's on YouTube, hit subscribe. If it's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you hit subscribe and join us on this journey. Also, if you want to get some more free stuff, such as my 101 Tips book, or you want to join up to the Franchisee Profit Pulse newsletter that comes out fortnightly where I give actual strategies to help you build your business. Again, it's free. As I said, free doesn't mean it's not low value. It's really high value. You're just not paying dollars for it. Just come over to my website at traceyleak.com. And you can find it all there. You also find the things that I'm releasing. I'm really excited with stuff that I'm bringing out, but I really want to invite you to continue listening to the podcast whilst you're exercising, whilst you're driving around, whilst you're doing the housework. This is why I love podcasts, is because you can be multitasking. That's how I listen to my podcasts. It's when I'm driving around, or when I'm on an aeroplane, or when I'm exercising, or when I'm doing the housework. I always have a podcast on because I can be learning whilst I'm doing things. And I really hope that the Profitable Franchisees podcast brings huge value to you. I can't believe how excited I am just getting started. Like, after interviewing Dan, I went, I forgot how good the podcast is to actually bring you stories. It's not about me. It's about the people I'm interviewing, and it's about you. So if you're loving it, please subscribe. If you know other franchisees, please refer the podcast to them. This is a place where I want to help you. If you think that maybe you should be on the podcast, then absolutely come over to my website, go to the podcast tab, and there's a thing where you can actually suggest a guest. So maybe you, or you might suggest someone that you think should be on the podcast. Please, absolutely, put your hand up. I would love to interview you and bring your story out. Or if you've got an area of expertise, I would love for you to bring that to the party, basically. So if you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. Really excited to be here, really excited to help more franchisees around the world to actually be more profitable in their business. Okay, look forward to seeing you on the next episode.